When people want change, they will make change.
And the questions flow in all directions.
It's cheap and it's very open, you know.
And I think it strikes at the heart of environmental democracy and democracy as a whole.
So I'm trying to save the untamed parts of myself.
I figured it out, what life is about, the whirl of a turning wheel in motion, of a turning wheel in motion. My body is real, it knows how to feel the loss of another night's devotion, of another night's devotion.
So someplace back in about 82, we got the idea that if we could bring together some of the public interest lawyers who are out there doing things, the law students, and citizen activists in the community, that we would have a kind of yeasty mix which would rise and create a loaf that would not be like what was going on elsewhere in this country.
Both Mike Axline and John Bonine had this very fundamental commitment to public environmental law.
It arose from a shared perception that John Bonine and I had that there were a lot of attorneys representing grassroots citizen groups around the West, often on their own with little support from the legal community, who would benefit from getting together and sharing their experiences.
I have never seen another arena that affords so much diversity of thought from the environmental public interest spectrum. It's a terrific conference, and it's unique in that way. There's no other place you can get so many interdisciplinary fields drawn together in one place in 4 days.
At that first conference that we had in '83, we didn't know how to get people to come to a conference that nobody had ever heard of because it had never existed. And furthermore, we had no money to give anybody any travel funds, anything. We couldn't even buy their lunch. We could do nothing. The first conference then in '83 had 15 speakers. There were 75 attendees, participants in the audience. That was it. But it kept growing. So from 75 participants, it became more than 3,000. And from 15 speakers, it became more than 200.
The conference has, over the years, evolved from an attempt to get together public interest environmental lawyers in the West to really a global operation. And that evolution has been pretty organic, as you know, one person remembered somebody else who they had met somewhere and invited them to come to the conference and told them how terrific it was. And then, you know, the sort of ripples went out to eventually reach around the world, so that now I think the conference has been visited by public interest lawyers from virtually every country in the world. And it remains a true sort of global experience.
I think this conference is a testimony to the explosion of creativity and information sharing and human emotion that takes place when you mix up citizens and experts of all types. And we don't do that enough in this society.
Well, I think the law conference is always precedent-setting in the variety of panels that they have. Everything from pesticide issues, timber issues, and now it's so good that the corporate structure, you know, that has kind of undermined our democracy in this country is a major topic at the law conference.
One of my favorite parts is just getting the brochure in the mail, you know, a little ahead of the conference and going through it like a magazine, or, you know, it's like getting an issue of Earth Island Journal or something that covers a really wide range of issues. And you learn stuff, and you learn who's who just by reading the conference brochure, and you kind of learn what are the issues that the law students are thinking about these days. So that's kind of fun. And the sad thing is that there's so many panels at any given time that you can't go to them all. So partly you get the conference brochure as a way to find out who's who in the panels you aren't able to go to. And then there's the trick of trying to juggle, you know, going to more than one panel during one time slot by going to half of one and half of another. it becomes quite a challenge to try to absorb as much as you can during the short time that everyone's there.
This conference would never have even started the first time if the seed of the idea had not fallen on fertile soil. And the fertile soil was the most incredible group of law students anywhere in the country in terms of environmental law. The Land, Air, Water Organization, voluntary law student environmental organization here at Oregon, is the oldest student organization for environmental law in the nation and I think in the world. The conference at the beginning, a few of us, some students, a couple of us on the faculty talked about it, but it was really the students who did so much of the early organizing. By now, in 1997, the students do all the organizing.
It makes going through law school much easier. I think I can say this about most law students, is that if you just focus on law school and the books and the classes, you pretty much go mad because you really lose perspective of what else is happening in the world. It's almost like shutting yourself off.
The amount of student devotion that it takes to make this happen is amazing. And what is even more amazing is that it's self-sustaining. I mean, this is a student-run conference.
There's nobody getting paid to do any of this. It's all law students who are going to school full-time, who have a passion and an interest for thinking intelligently about our natural environment.
To put on the conference certainly takes a lot of time out of the students' law studies. And it's a real commitment on their part to carry through the whole conference. But at the same time, just the experience of putting on this conference, connecting themselves with the scientists and the activists and the public interest lawyers, probably changes them forever in terms of their conception of law.
It just spreads out like this huge banquet for you, this feast, if you will, of potential lifelong commitments. And in that sense, it really did help me tailor my efforts in law school to the fields of environmental law that I'm practicing today.
I definitely came into law school with strong environmental beliefs, but they were not. I hadn't merged that environmental belief with a professional, goals or professional development. And the conference really helped me to merge those two things. It gave me skills, and it gave me techniques, and it gave me advocacy, avenues that I hadn't realized were there before. And so suddenly, instead of, having environmental beliefs just being sort of a philosophical underpinning for things you do in your daily life, suddenly it could become, wow, I could actually become effective and change the world and become more effective and develop those skills.
I mean, as the conference gets more complex, it's a bigger and bigger job for the law students to coordinate and organize. The contribution the law students have made to the environmental movement is, I think we will reap those benefits for decades to come.
My participation in the conference has been mostly as an admiring observer. I stand back in awe at the work that the students do on the conference and the energy that the participants bring to the conference. It's really a very community-driven event. There's an old Quaker saying about speaking truth to power, and speaking truth to power often is effective, but it can have consequences.
I think anyone who's involved in environmental issues recognizes that these are controversial issues, and so as the environmental community, I don't think we're unfamiliar with controversy.
The truth of the matter is, anytime you get real about anything, you're going to generate controversy.
There are people every year who object to the conference, its content, its location.
I think that the critics of the conference are a very small minority of people, a small group of people that have distinct political agendas, which may or may not be related to resource issues around this area or this region.
Anytime you bring a few thousand activists together, activists by definition are people who are willing and able to challenge authority, you're going to have controversies. And that's great. That's the spice of it. That's why they're here, because they're willing to say, I don't like the way that's being done, and I have a better idea, and I'm going to tell you about it. And you can almost bet that there will be some kind of controversy during the conference, and that it will resolve itself.
I think revolution within the conference is an important part of its history. Unfortunately, those who are organizing it are often, they take the brunt of the criticism, and it's directed at them personally because everybody thinks hierarchies run the world, and so this conference must be hierarchical too, and therefore if anything one doesn't like, it must be the fault of the organizers. This is not a hierarchy, and it's usually the fault of people not working hard enough to create alternatives themselves in terms of panels, topics, or participants.
If people have a concern that's not being met, all they need to do is offer to participate. And I've never seen that offer turned down, ever.
I think it was Earth First just took away the styrofoam cups that the conference organizers had available for serving drinks, and ever since then the conference sells reusable cups but doesn't even offer throwaway cups. So in that case it was great.
One time when I was at the conference for 4 days, I distinctly remember I had to get a cup and use it the whole 4 days. After that 4 days, I've never used a styrofoam cup since.
I still think a little revolution and a little bit of protest is what keeps this thing lively and indeed keeps changing it.
The crisis of our existence is a crisis of relationship. Our relationship, to quote the environment, our relationship to our places, our relationship to our jobs, our relationship to our families, to our loved ones, to ourselves, to our gods.
As long as the conference keeps speaking truth to power, there will be controversies surrounding the conference.
I come to the Public Interest Law Conference, you know, as a shot in the arm. And that has to do with hope and joy and camaraderie and determination and guts and courage.
The sense of inspiration and hope that people can walk away from the conference is one that permeates every single session, and that's been, you know, real inspiring to me.
I think this conference definitely has a different feeling to it that's completely invigorating, intellectually and also emotionally invigorating. It's great to see so many people coming together, united over concern for environmental issues of a very, very broad range, and human rights issues as well.
It reminds both activists and environmental attorneys that the work we're involved in is at once deadly serious and tremendously fun. And I think that, for me, is the essence of this conference.
People working to try to protect the environment, they need methods. They need to share ideas, share strategies, work together. They also need inspiration. In a gathering like this, the conference starts up because it can provide those two things, inspiration and methods.
But it's not only about inspiration. I mean, there are technical experts here, and this is a real opportunity for the grassroots person to meet the hotshot lawyer or the high-powered scientist and really build a relationship. Science isn't going to win the day by itself. Law isn't going to win the day by itself. Poetry isn't going to win the day by itself. But if those pieces get connected into what is traditionally called a chain and what we call a network, then what you've done is you've taken all these pieces, which are really gifts, and you've tied them together, and you create something that no one skill or specialty could possibly create.
Well, it's an essential part of my information gathering process. Every year I think that I have something to learn there, and then the networking with all of my allies is really important too.
The conference brings people together, ideas form, but I think the most important thing is a lot of the ideas and intellectual thought gets put down on a paper, it gets done. People come here with motivation so that they don't just come and talk about it and then leave. They actually come, talk about a problem, think about a solution, and then actually use those workshops to do what they want, what they've been talking about. And you know, the networks and the coalitions that have been formed at the conference is really a great side of the conference that keeps it going every year, because people know that if they come here, they'll have the opportunity to meet other people working in the fields that they are, or you know, meeting new people that they never knew that were doing the same things they are. And that's really the basis of the entire movement, is to build the coalitions.
So I'm looking around for arenas where the public itself tries to begin a dialogue about complicated issues, and this is one of the few arenas that I can think of like that.
I think there's a lot that comes from the conference that continues on and has its own life after the conference. I think on several levels, a national level, an international level, a local and regional scale, people come together, develop contacts, and then develop projects and ideas that they work on after the conference is long over.
In 1988, after some travels that Mike Axline and I had meeting people in other countries doing environmental law, we started suggesting that some of them be invited to the conference. And by 1989, we had really an incredibly significant number of interesting environmental lawyers, public interest lawyers from other countries. During that meeting, we were all energized so much by learning that each of us is doing things that the others are doing, but in different cultures and different societies. That we came up right after the meeting, we met in Mike's office, and we said, maybe we should create an organization that would allow environmental lawyers in different places to connect with each other, to be able to talk to each other, to share experiences. That was the genesis of ELAW, the Environmental Law Alliance Worldwide, which started with, co-founded by 9 countries, by public interest lawyers from 9 countries, and now consists of public interest lawyers from nearly 50 countries spread all over the world.
First, the conference is incredibly valuable to ELAW, partly because the ELAW network is an international network. It's people working together in different corners of the globe. It uses electronic mail to do that, but it's really a human network, and it's the human links that you form at the conference, coming to Eugene, working together, that makes that work around the globe possible. There's a trust and a sort of a camaraderie that's only formed through coming together and working together in person and sharing ideas.
One of the interesting spin-offs of this conference is that out of the Public Interest Law Conference, a group of scientists worked with me to form a public interest science conference at the University of Oregon, and we're having our 5th annual conference this year. It's much smaller than the Public Interest Law Conference, but the concept of scientists working for the public interest is directly parallel to lawyers working in the public interest.
Early on, we also came up with the idea of creating a directory of public interest environmental lawyers in the West.
Environmental law is a very special niche, I think. And so when we get those calls from New Mexico or Southern California or Montana or, you know, even on the East Coast, there are resources listed in that directory of environmental attorneys that has been extraordinarily useful to us, because we don't know all these people, but that directory helps us go to the people that can be of assistance to these individuals. So that's been a really, really useful tool.
Martin Buber, who was a great Jewish rabbi, said all real living is meeting, and I think that the conference epitomizes that, in that it encourages the connections, the interactions, the both brief and enduring encounters that people of like-minded interests strive for.
You can't get through the hallways without running into the full spectrum of environmental activism, vegan activism, anti-nuclear, animal rights, civil liberties, you name it. That process, I think, has been an important part of keeping the tone of the conference where it needs to be. It is a conference to learn, it is a conference to think, it is a conference to have your mind stretched and challenged, but it is also a conference of inspiration. It is not a conference at all. It is a festival.
You know, one of the things that strikes me about the law conference is the affordability of it. The fees are ones that, you know, a volunteer at the local level in a community group can afford to pay.
You know, they hold the cost down, which makes it affordable for anybody. And also, I think holding those costs down, having people do homestays, having low-key meals is part of what gives the conference its flavor.
I think the concept of having speakers and participants able to stay in homes in Eugene is all part of the common basic theme of the Public Interest Law Conference. This is all community.
I'd rather sleep on the floor if someone's home. Give me a little sense of family and some reality.
Well, basically, the town of Eugene opens its doors to guests from all over the country and all over the world. And the students almost always, without exception, manage to pair people with family hosts.
From the banners that are unfurled over the top of the law school to the fact that David Brower, one of the leaders of the environmental movement, comes to the conference on his own ticket each year and receives a standing ovation from the adoring activists who are the attendees at the conference, to the fact that it's put on entirely by students, to the fact that 95% of the participants come on their own. The conference is not sponsored by any wealthy foundation or corporation or even the University of Oregon. The people who participated in it are coming there because they care about the work that they and others are doing, and they want to share that experience. So, the conference, what makes it unique, it's obviously, the people who come to it and the people who put it on. I mean, environmental law or, science, those are not unusual topics for a conference. It's the participants who make it unique and wonderful.
All the power in everyone, all the dance of the moon and sun, all the hope that will not hang, all the turning of the tide, we all the power.
I think the law conference helps us unite behind a new vision of society that we all know we have to transition into, or we won't be on this planet anymore.
It brings people together that don't normally walk on the same street or live in the same town or even have the same interests.
At this conference, there's no one on top. There's just a sense of we're all in this together.
And the radical concept to me is when pollution occurs that's illegal and nobody does anything about it. When forests are cut, decimated, against the law, and nobody does anything about it. When species disappear from the face of the earth in direct contradiction to laws intended to protect those species, and nobody does anything about it. That is the radical view to me.
I felt the sense of, I'm part of a link in this effort to make a difference in the world, and I'm important, and I'm doing my part, and I'm giving it the best effort I have.
Mary Catherine Bateson, who I like a whole bunch, she says, stop talking about solving the environmental problem. It's not a solvable problem, any more than washing the dishes is a solvable problem. It's just something you have to do every day, and if you don't do it, you'll be facing a big mess. And that's how it is. If hopefulness means that we're going to pass the piece of legislation or do this that solves the problem, of course not. That's ridiculous, and I have no hope whatsoever at all. On the other hand, if hope means learning how to change our lives, to stay with things day after day, and to realize that the real results may not show up except among our children several generations from now. If that's the understanding we have, I think there's a lot of great work to do, and I'm very hopeful about doing it.
I love it, I love it, I love it. I love it, how I love this place. I love it, how I love this place. I love it, how I love this happy place. This healing place. I love it, how I love this peaceful